Hello, everyone. On this fine October day, doing pretty well for myself and feeling pretty good. Although I recently saw this news article, and I guess you can say it's just like not again. Uh, this has to do with some kind of binding spell. I think it's people have been using it since 2017, but recently, I guess, I don't know. A lot of the time, news outlets will start, making articles and stuff about witchcraft and things because, October, witches, Halloween. Um, so they made this. And I just want to address it again. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people, aren't really into the whole political thing, or maybe they don't agree with me or something like that. But this is something I kind of feel strongly about because, yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a strong supporter of the separation of church and state. Um, and I guess more accurately, it would be I'm a believer in the separation of religion and politics. So, yeah, without further ado, I'll read you this article about witches trying to bind Trump on Halloween or late this October, I think, this Saturday. Um, I don't know what the video here has to do with any of it. It's been playing since I've gotten started and preparing. But anyway, a week before Halloween, opponents of President Trump will gather in the thousands to cast a spell on the administration to prevent the administration from harming the country. Participants in the ritual, which have been performed regularly since Trump's inauguration, yeah, I mentioned that before, are taking particular encouragement from the Democrats' recent launch of an impeachment inquiry, which they see as a sign of their efforts working. Well, I guess it only took about, 2-3 years? I'm not sure how successful your spell has to be um, to have it only work after multiple times throughout several years. I'm willing to go on record and say it's working, says Michael Hughes, the self-described magical thinker and activist who came up with the ritual. The spell is crafted to bind Donald Trump and all those who abet him, and is supposed to be performed during every waning crescent moon until Trump is removed from office. The ritual calls for use of an unflattering photo of Trump, a tarot card, a stub of an orange candle, a pin, and a feather. Participants then call on the heavenly hosts, demons of the infernal realms, and spirits of the ancestors to bind Trump, so his malignant works may fail utterly. Which is interesting once you think about it, because, obviously, for a lot of pagans, we don't see things as, inherently like heavenly or satanic, or, we have a different, belief structure than most Christians. But, as something as public as this, and then using heavenly hosts and demons of the infernal realms, it makes me raise an eyebrow, because it's like, I understand where the guy's coming from, but when, you're trying to make something as public as this, it's like, why are you trying to summon demons, dude? Or call upon them. So, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, we don't care what other people think about us, and, we should be able to practice freely as we choose to, and damned all appearances and different things like that. But to me, also, when you're thinking about wider acceptance of non-Christian, especially, or just pagan religions in general, I think we want to promote a different front or appearance than, people who summon demons and shit. So, I don't know. It's complicated. I understand that. Not everybody's going to agree, but, don't expect people to be, arms open and accepting. If, you understand that demons are something that's supposed to be bad in their religious hierarchy or taxonomy, and then, use at least the same word, demons, for summoning spirits and different things that, are in your religious understanding. Don't be you can't summon those things and expect people who don't understand it to be very accepting, which is mostly what I'm trying to say. Hopefully I'm being clear. Okay, yeah. Against Hughes' expectations, the ritual took off and is still being performed almost 3 years later. 3 years later, with this month's event likely to draw thousands of participants at small group gatherings and covens, or meetings of witches around the world. Hughes told the Washington Examiner the spell went immediately viral and just completely exploded after he posted it on Medium, prompting attention from major news outlets. He said he thought any response to Trump's election had to have an equal sense of surreality or strangeness to break through the media and social media. I don't blame him. I remember when Trump was elected, it was like, wow, this was completely unexpected. I wonder what's going to happen. So, yeah, we're getting into clown world, or what a lot of people like to use as that phrase, where everything is just getting so crazy that it's just, a big, huge comedy, and we're all just a bunch of clowns. While he said it was difficult to calculate how many people participated at the first event in 2017, Hughes said it was definitely in the thousands and spread across the world. He noted that several thousand people continue to participate in the ritual every month. How deranged, how much Trump derangement syndrome do you have to have in order to do this ritual every month? You must really hate the guy. And believe me, I'm not a big fan of Trump myself. I think, he's a bit of a narcissist and a blowhard, and he's definitely not my pick for if anyone if I were to pick anyone to be president, it would not be him. But I don't feel the need or the necessity to, use a binding ritual every month because I don't like him. I think it's a little petty and childish. I remember when Bush was elected, and he got elected twice. So he was first elected when I was, really young, 12-ish. And then he was elected again when I was around 17. I was just a month too young to actually, participate in that election when he was elected a second time. And I was pretty disappointed both times, but I didn't feel the need, or I didn't think it was a good idea to, well, I wasn't a witch back then, but even back then, I don't think I would have resorted to magic just because I didn't like Bush. I've tried using magic before when, I was younger and very new at paganism, to try and influence politics, but it never worked in the sense that the outcome was not what I was hoping for or expected. Kind of made me think of the time with Obamacare. I did want that to happen, and obviously it did, but there was a lot of unintended consequences with it that I was not happy with, and eventually it led me down this path. Politically, I would say I'm either in the center or just slightly right, just slightly. I used to be very staunchly liberal, but after a lot of disappointment, I really changed my mind for, so I think using, due to my experience, I think using magic to influence politics, you're not going to have a good outcome. But, yeah, I can't believe that somebody would, be that dedicated to trying to get rid of somebody like that. But, with the Democratic Party the way it is now, I mean, it seems like they're trying to, dog every move that Trump makes. And, sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's not. But there are some people who say that if if Trump were to say, I endorse oxygen, then Democrats would die of asphyxiation. And I don't think it's healthy to be that oppositional. Even like during the Obama era, the way Republicans retreated him. It's not healthy to be that oppositional when we should be working together in government to make any kind of change. And so much of the problem is stagnation coming from our, Congress and government, even on the local level, I think. But back to this. Hughes considers this spell a way for people to feel re-empowered in the wake of the 2016 election. Knowing thousands of people are gathering together at the same time from all over the world to do this ritual and to put our beliefs and our desires into sharp focus and to do that ritualistically, I think that it has a really powerful effect, said Hughes. Karen Tibbets-Williams, a New Zealand-based witch and paranormal investigator, said the point of the ritual is to prevent Trump and his supporters from causing harm, but the ritual does not specify how that result should be achieved. Well, that's pretty average. It could be by creating unity and strength among his opponents. It could be brought about by his impeachment and removal from office, she wrote in an email to the Washington Examiner. But while the means by which Trump is bound is not clearly defined, Tibbets-Williams is also confident the ritual is working. I've seen for myself many times over the power and effectiveness of magic. My confidence in the power and efficacy of our binding and the effect which it is having is absolute. I don't believe it works. I know it does, she says. And I understand that bit of magic, you're supposed to believe and that helps power it. But at the same time, if you've, there's this comedian named Roy Zimmerman, and he's done a lot of songs, and there's this one about creationism that he does, and I love it. And it's the same thing with Christians, they're like, I know because I believe that, like, for instance, evolution is fake, or I know because I believe that the Bible is true, or something like that. And I understand, the process of magic and how it's supposed to work, but at the same time, I think having a level of skepticism, or in this case, just a little bit of sanity and, being able to discern when and how you should do magic would go a long way. Because this is just, I don't know, using magic to influence politicians, I think it sticks in my craw. Because, a lot of people, they don't use magic, or in the case of a lot of conservative Christians, they use prayer. And I think it makes me feel dirty, because, we're inserting religion into something that's inherently really dirty. Politics is dirty. There's a lot of backstabbing and lies, and you can't trust people in positions of power no matter where you go. And it just seems so underhanded to use like prayer or magic when we should be having more transparency in these sorts of matters. But I know, that's just the way I feel about it. Hughes' spell comes at a time in which witchcraft is on the rise in the United States. From 1990 to 2008, the number of individuals practicing Wicca, a form of witchcraft, increased from about 8,000 to 340,000. In 2014, the number of Wiccans in the United States may have been as high as 1.5 million, based on a Pew survey. Hughes says that a desire for more direct spirituality is driving the popularity of paganism and witchcraft. They're embracing spiritual paths, spiritual ideas that allow them to be empowered in their spirituality without that middleman, such as a priest or rabbi, said Hughes. And to this extent, I would agree. And paganism also allows a greater degree of autonomy in how you practice and what you believe, which is kind of ironic considering that I've encountered it, and a few of my friends have encountered it, where you're talking about your political beliefs, and they say, well, hey, wait, aren't you pagan? if you're a good pagan, you have to be liberal, or you have to believe in such and such, certain thing. It's almost like a dogma that's getting inserted into paganism, that you have to be, far left pagan, or far left sort of leftist liberal in order to be pagan, which I think is wrong. Paganism is very diverse, and it doesn't have an orthodox dogma that everybody has to follow. So you can be conservative and pagan, and I think it's wrong when people say you have to be a certain way. You hear out of this one side of their mouths, it's like you can be pagan and you're believe in these things, and you can still be a pagan, and nobody should be able to criticize you. And then out of the same side of their mouths they say, wait, you're conservative, or you like Trump, or you support the Second Amendment or something like that. You can't be pagan, you're a bad pagan. And I think it's so hypocritical. Yeah. And his ritual is not the only effort to cast a spell on the Trump administration. Last year, a group of witches gathered to perform a hex to cause suffering on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, I mentioned that. Using effigies of Trump, Kavanaugh, and the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Father Vincent Lampert, and this gets into something that is very important to me. Father Vincent Lampert, a Roman Catholic priest and the designated exorcist of the Archdiocese of Indianapolis, said that Hughes's ritual and the occult more broadly give an opening to evil in the lives of participants. Some of them may be doing it thinking it's just fun, but they are gambling with evil, and just because their motive is one way doesn't mean they're not opening up an entry point for evil in their own life, Father Lampert told the Washington Examiner. While more people might be turning to magic and witchcraft to find meaning, Father Lampert warned they are dangerous solutions. I think evil will present itself as something good, maybe initially to attract people's attention, to draw people in, but then ultimately people are going to discover it's all about fracturing their lives, he said. And that's the end of the article. But I find that last part really important because, when I was growing up, teenager, the Christian right was, a huge political force. Maybe some of you are too young to remember that. But, you had the Moral Majority and like Jerry Falwell and his organizations and different things like that. Mixing up Christian religion with conservative politics. And if you've seen what is that one, the Bible Camp documentary, I forget the name of the documentary, but they had kids praying over a cardboard cutout of Bush. These people are still around. They haven't necessarily gone away. I think they've lost power, especially after Obama won twice, and his administration was in office for about 8 years. But they're still here, and I don't think that Trump has fully embraced them, but he does use them, as well as I think he uses white nationalists and white supremacists. It's like, kind of talking out of one side of his mouth. It's like, oh yeah, I support you guys. He's like, no, I don't. I'm just using you guys because you're a bunch of dupes. But yeah, they're still around. They still could come back, and there are people out there on the federal, state, local level who would use politics to oppress, dare I say oppress, people who are not Christian. And this sort of thing is just kind of playing right into their hands. They're like saying, see, these pagans are evil. They're using demons and, blah, 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 blah. And they're, pinko commies. And we have to stop them. So when, you guys are doing this sort of thing, you're just playing right into their stereotype. And I wish it would stop. I wish we could kind of calm down, sit together, and recognize that, pagans aren't all the same. We don't always believe in the same thing. There are some conservative pagans, and you can be a pagan and be an activist. Maybe your religion inspires you to do these things, but at the same time, you kind of have this idea with these people. They're like, you have to be an activist as part of your practice, and I don't think that's true at all. Um, so it's kind of funny. A lot of people, they talk about diversity and inclusion, but when it comes to the way people practice or believe, or what parts of their lives correspond with what, they're actually very intolerant. And you know if we keep going this direction, the intolerance is just going to increase until the differences become so great that you know it won't be necessarily irreconcilable, but I think it can lead to violence in the sense that, like with Antifa, they attack people who they think are Nazis, but they're not really. Or in this case, maybe conservative Christians will gain the upper hand again, and then, enact policies against people who practice pagan religions. So, I don't know. It's food for thought. I will talk to you guys later, and I'll try and find some more positive stuff to talk about, because yeah, I know this is not the best. It's a kind of a downer. So hope you guys have a good time. If I don't see you until Halloween, I hope you have a good Samhain, blessed Samhain, blessed festival of Osar or Osiris, and Senebti, everybody. Be well.